everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Apex. So as promised in today's episode, we're going to give you a special, what's the word?
I don't know.
A special edition? Maybe?
Yeah, special edition Beyond the Apex.
Yeah, special edition. We're moving away from Formula 1 and we're talking about Formula E today. So obviously, end of the season, you know, this is what we're going to talk about the whole season, like season 9, 16 races, 11 countries and 1 World Championship title. And obviously that World Championship title has gone to Jake Dennis. Obviously as Brits we're kind of happy.
Yeah, to say the least.
To say the least. And obviously we witnessed it, which is also quite something. So yeah, let's start talking about it. Obviously we're talking about the Gen 3 car, which is obviously the fastest car that we've had in Formula E so far, top speeds of 200 mile an hour. So it's not we've never seen it before, and obviously on street circuits it does look quite fast.
Yes, yeah, it definitely does.
It really does, and most of its energy as well, like 40% of it is gained back from regen in a race, regenerative braking, which is also really cool. So you know the technology that they've improved through the years from 2016, 2015 is quite something. So yeah, it was great to see Gen 3 car. So I'm going to stop talking to Sam. Sam's doing what I do in F1. He's like,
absolutely. Yep.
So let's get into it.
So obviously, first race of the season was Mexico City, and Jake Dennis won. Obviously, I think Degrassi was on pole for that race, so he was definitely leading the start of the race. Dennis passed him towards the middle of the race, and then there was kind of the main fight was for P5 at the end. Obviously, then we had Verline and Degrassi, second and third. Obviously, Verline being Jake Dennis's championship contender towards the end of the season as well. But yeah, it was a great race, so I'll hand it over.
Yeah, I mean,
in depth.
yeah, well, I'll just say, like, Jake Dennis crossed the line 7.8 seconds clear of Pascal, which is something else. You know, especially with our first race of the Gen 3 season, it was just, wow. It really did show that, you know, Andretti potentially have something against other people, and also Jake Dennis was just through the roof. We obviously had safety cars. Obviously there isn't a Formula race without Formula E race without a safety car, let's be honest. You know, Robin Fryns crashed into the back of Norman Nato at the chicane, which was an early safety car, but then he actually broke his left wrist in that crash.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that was a great start to the Gen 3 season 9 for Robin Fryns. And then also Sam Bird came to a stop, broken drive shaft, and then his Jaguar had to be collected, and it was just all a bit of a shambles. Mortara lost the rear as well and went backwards into the wall at turn 1. So
that was a high-speed crash as well. I remember that one.
Yeah, that was because we actually watched this one with the Motorsport Society, because there wasn't any F1 on at the time. No. Everyone was like, we want racing, and it was actually a good race, to be honest. People have a thing about Formula E, whether it's actually fun or not. So, but this was actually a good start to the Gen 3 season. So obviously that's roll on Diriyah. Round 2, we had Verline, Dennis and Bird.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Sam said, Verline was towards the end of the season Jake Dennis's championship rival. He was doing really well at the start of the season.
Start of the season, he was looking like he was going to storm it, because obviously he won both races in Diriyah.
Yeah.
He looks really competitive for once. Obviously, he hasn't really been in this position, and now he was storming it at the start of the season. And obviously Jake Dennis getting 2 seconds, so it was clear that they were kind of the emerging competitors. Yeah. But yeah, 2 great races again. Yeah,
2 great races. Obviously that was round 2 and 3 in Diriyah. But then we had Rene Rast as well on the podium in round 3.
Yes.
So that was quite really nice to see.
And obviously McLaren was so strong at the start of the season as well. Obviously Hughes on pole for one of the Diriyah races. Obviously we were scoring good points, and then in round 3 obviously Hughes ran out of energy on the line, forced I think it's Buemi to go past Bird as well.
I remember that.
So that was a huge moment of the season. Very exciting.
There's a video of me going, oh my god, when he
oh yeah, I remember filming that,
yeah, Hughes lost power. I remember that actually, that's not on the notes. He lost power and then Buemi just went, and I was like, what, Ellie, what's going on?
I remember the radio messages as well were hilarious from Bird.
Because obviously with the Formula E, it's down to the very last minute within power. You know, they've got 1%, not even that, for the end of the race. So obviously, like if you use too much power, you're not going to have any power to cross the line.
And do you know what? I realised how much of an impact losing energy was in the team sport that we did.
Oh yeah.
Because having no energy and someone having boost is just huge.
Yeah. You just sat like a sitting duck.
It must have been that like that. You just like sitting
there,
just
going, oh no, and then trying to like push himself to the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we saw that. But Wehrlein actually became the 5th double winner of Formula E at that race because he obviously won 2 rounds, and that was only ever happened for like the fifth time it's ever happened in Formula E. So that was quite something. And Jesus, I will just say 9 laps. The top 8 were split by 3 seconds. So that's something we do see with Formula E as well. It's all really tight. You don't get someone that's 20 seconds ahead, really. You know, it's just...
No, but obviously the top 22 cars were only separated by 10 seconds.
Yeah, so it's a very tightly packed, you know, circus. They're all with the same... regulations make it so that they're all kind of similar to F1, but maybe not so much, because obviously we've got Max that dominates.
Yeah, by 20 seconds, and then everyone else is behind
everyone else is behind. But yeah, it's really good to see. That's something I really like about Formula E, is that you just don't know who could come on top.
No, you know, anyone can stick it on pole.
Anyone.
Especially with the duels, obviously, because you're not relying on every car getting a lap in. If you're in the duels and your competitor messes up, you're going through.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything can happen.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll go on to round 4, which is Hyderabad. I can never say it. So we had Jean-Eric Vergne on the podium, and then Cassidy, good old Jev, Cassidy, and then Da Costa. It was Jev's first podium since season 7 in Rome.
That's nuts. And also, am I reading that right? That was Cassidy's first. That was Cassidy's first podium of the year. Yeah,
he really didn't. He came into title contention for the World Championship quite late on in the season. Well, I say late on in the season, at round 4. You know, he wasn't on the podium at the other races, but he did. He as we would say, he spawned in.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we did see a lot of safety cars in this race as well. Sam Bird made lunge on Sasha Fenner Straz. That was a lot to say. Then couldn't stop in time when he collected Mitch Evans. I don't know if you remember this. He was running 3rd at the time. Put them both into retirements. That was great for Jaguar, especially with them being.
Oh no, I do remember this. Yeah, I remember the radios.
Yep, especially with them being obviously Jaguar in title contention. For the Constructors' World Championship, you know, it just wasn't really a good weekend for them, especially with 1 round in Hyderabad, and then they're both out.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's giving Alpine.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, but obviously, what if that wouldn't have happened? They probably would have won the Constructors.
Yeah,
so yeah.
They would have got more points.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, it was a really tight thing. But Bremy also crossed the line in 3rd, but then he had an infringement because they used overpower, and that made him 50. It was a 17-second time penalty.
Well, it wasn't as big as the Da Costa penalty that we saw this week. It was a 3-minute time penalty right at the end of the race.
We'll get on to that, but obviously in Formula E, if you use overpower, they're going to like calculate how much overpower you've used and then make it into a penalty, and obviously 17 seconds, because the pack is so close together, he went from being on the podium to 50. So that wasn't a great race for Envision, but you know, here we are. But let's move on to round 5.
Yeah. So, moving on to round 5 in Cape Town, obviously Da Costa took the win here, the season 6 winner, came from 11th on the grid, which are drives that we can actually see in Formula E, which really proves that anyone can win. And obviously the move was on lap 24, it was an incredible move on Cassidy. And I remember this race mainly from the first lap incident with Wemmy. That was very telling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a cracking race, to be fair.
It was obviously Cassidy on the podium again. We're going to see this as an emerging thing as well. But yeah, no, the Porsche driver, what was it? Secondary mandatory attack mode. He had to he retook the lead, but then he missed the activation loop. And then handing the lead to Jean-Eric Vergne at the start in the race. But that is one thing as well, actually, we will say, that is, you know, the attack mode is where they take the outside line, and that's how they get a boost of power, which we went karting.
Yeah, oh my god.
And you get I missed it several times, and I was like, oh my god, I'm Jake Dennis now.
And then I would have got it, and then you would have went in the inside of me, and then I got boosted and just flew past you.
I was like, I literally feel like Jake Dennis at this point, but here we are. No, so obviously, like, if you miss the activation loop, I think there are 3 loops that you have to meet, then you can't use attack mode, and we've seen that in London actually.
Oh, so many times with Jake Dennis. He tries to get it 4 times and only got it twice. So.
And obviously that does hinder your race, because you're on the other side of the track essentially. But yeah, obviously, it was a mad race. I do kind of remember it a little bit, but yeah, obviously.
It was an early morning one, I think. So.
I think so. Yeah. But obviously, Casta on the podium again, and then Da Costa just a great race from him, you know. Season 6 champion, so, you know, you can't, fair enough.
Yeah, it's always great to see, and always Jeb on the podium is always good to see as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so round 6 was in Sao Paulo. We're seeing a lot of, like, one thing of Formula E that I don't like is the fact that they have a lot of races which aren't like weekend races, it's just in on one day, which they fly to somewhere like Sao Paulo and it's in on one day. I don't.
It's not worth it for their kind of mentality for saving stuff. The amount of fuel that they're having to use to get the cars to a location. It's not like, for instance, Extreme E, where it's all carbon neutral, everything's on boats, so it takes way longer.
Yeah.
It really is kind of. It's a waste, and I'd say if we did less race weekends and just having double headers the whole time, it would be better.
It'd be a different situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So obviously we had Evans on the podium for the first time of the season.
Yeah.
Was it the first time of the season?
Yeah.
Evans, Cassidy, and then Bird. Obviously Cassidy's creeping up there as we're seeing. It was the first 1, 2, 3 for the Jaguar powertrain. Which is quite something, obviously, because Envision are the customer team for Jaguar. So we've really seen that domination of you know, the Jaguar powertrain, and we have seen that into the other end of the season as well. Because obviously we've got the current as in constructors world. Constructors are Envision.
Yeah.
Nearly got that wrong.
Then Jaguar.
And then Jaguar.
Porsche, obviously, with their powertrain.
Porsche with their powertrain, but that's just is telling that it you know. It's got some, I don't know.
100%.
100% there's something different about it.
But obviously, Sao Paulo, this race was huge for the main straight.
Yeah.
Because, it was the top speed, I think, the cars have hit ever.
Yes.
And we just saw so many moves happening down that straight. And I think that was also the race. Was that the race, or was it Portland, where it was like the last lap, and there was like 6 cars line on line. I think that might have been Portland.
Might have been,
but still, the amount of overtaking Sao Paulo with the straight was huge.
It's something we don't see as well, because obviously a lot of it is street circuits, so we don't really see that often. So it was quite good to see. Also, Jake Dennis on World Championship. What's the word?
World champion.
World champion. I was thinking, why can't I think of the word? Our world champion, our current season 9 world champion, he did actually suffer a DNF after contact with Dan Ticktum, who clashed with Pascal Wehrlein, so it wasn't his fault. He just kind of got caught up in it, which suffered an early end to his race, which was a shame because, and that's one thing as well that I was saying, we didn't see Jake Dennis rise. We obviously, I didn't see him. I didn't think he would have been world champion.
Absolutely not.
Like at the start of the season, which is obviously something different to Formula 1 because obviously we're going to see Max be world champion. There's no doubt about that.
We kind of knew that on the 3rd race weekend.
Absolutely. So that's one thing about Formula E as well. It's just,
I remember Jake being absolutely fuming after that because his luck was turning in that area, that part of the season. And look, it was Pascal looking like he was going to take an easy win, but obviously he came back. But
was this the race where he called Dan Ticktum something?
I think he called him something that we can't say.
No, I thought it was just like a funny word. I can't remember.
Was it a plonker?
Plonker. Called him a plonker.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's like, what, a plonker?
Yeah.
So, that was something. Okay, so we're moving on. Oh my god. We'll move on to round 7 and 8, which is Berlin. Not much to say. We've delved into detail with the others, but obviously we'll just say the podiums for these. We had Evans, Bird, and Gunther on the podium, and then in round 8 we had Cassidy, Dennis, and Jev. Jev back on the podium. And then obviously Cassidy making his rise.
Yes, taking the win. Obviously this is where we saw him climbing on Pascal.
Yeah.
Because obviously Dennis was still kind of climbing.
Yeah.
But the Pascal's lead was definitely decreasing,
definitely
and Cassidy was definitely coming back into it.
Absolutely, and that's and obviously we'll lead into that. Cassidy's lead was climbing because round 9 in Monaco, which we can say because we went. What a race! Obviously, it ended under the safety car. Not the best situation for any fans out there. No. But again, all in on one day. But what a race!
What a race! Obviously, Cassidy started P10. It was Hughes on pole, which I was very happy about. I thought I was going to see the first McLaren win. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I think he had a horrific race in the end, Hughes. But Cassidy climbing the ranks. It was just every single attack mode, he seemed to gain 2 places, and then we were like,
oh, wait a minute.
Cassidy's leading.
And then obviously it ended under the safety car and he won. So a really great race for him in terms of points, championship 100%. Points. It really did put him in the standings. Obviously going into the last race in London, it was so close that it was going to be a decider, in London. So,
and that's what we wanted to see. We didn't want to see it.
We didn't want to go into London knowing the world champion.
But honestly, in Formula E, we often see it go to the last race. It's not like Formula 1 where this is going to be like 6 rounds towards the end and Max is going to be world champion. They really do go to the last race often, and it's what is great about this championship.
It is really good. It is good. So after Monaco, we obviously have round 10, which is Jakarta. Again, not much to say. I'm pretty sure this was an early race.
Yes, this was a very early morning race.
I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. or something.
Yes.
I can't remember.
I think it was a 4 a.m.
4 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the one thing about Formula E as well, is that obviously they're going to these mad places all over the world and you just can't keep up with the time zones.
To be fair, I think you woke up for one of these and then just fell asleep halfway through.
I did. But we had Verline again, Dennis, and then Gunther. Obviously, Verline picking it up again, we hadn't seen him on the podium for at least 3 rounds, 4 rounds.
Oh, I think it was about 5 rounds.
5 rounds?
Oh my god, it was third round, so no, 7 rounds he hadn't been on the podium, and obviously he was the championship contender at the start of the season. So, won 2 races and then wasn't on the podium for 7 rounds, so good to see him win again.
It was, and we had round 10 and 11 in Jakarta, and obviously in 11, Gunther what a weekend for Gunther. Yeah. Obviously a podium and a win. Yeah. And obviously he had quite a strong end to the season, obviously with Rome. Yeah. But great to see him on the podium as well. It was, and obviously Dennis P2 in both of those races obviously really again helped his championship run on everyone kind of thing. So let's talk about Portland. So, moving on to round 12 in Portland, this was the first kind of race on a big track, which we saw. Obviously Cassidy taking the win, Dennis, his championship rival, right behind him, and Da Costa back on the podium again. Dennis was on pole. This was the race where anyone could have won it going into the last laps, really, because they were all because of the nature of the circuit, everyone was trying to save energy and basically just fully going off the throttle on the straight. And we saw these kind of mad images where there was like 20 cars in the base of like 3 seconds. So anyone could have won this, but Cassidy took the win, and it was actually a really good race. It really was. Obviously we did see a high-speed crash at the back of the stretch of the track for Nico Muller, which he actually told the team he had no brakes in the moments leading up to the crash, which is not something you particularly want to hear. So it's never a good thing to see crashes like these, and I think that was one of the ones I actually do remember, as well as Rome, which we'll go on to talk about, because but obviously DS Penske failed to get either of their cars out of the points after both drivers had to start from the pit lane because they were using illegal scanning equipment. They were checking tyre pressures of all the teams on the grid, which you're not allowed to do because they put something on the pit lane, which meant that they could get all the data from every single team, which is absolutely ridiculous. The weirdest penalty ever. I mean, I remember telling you about this. I think we were together, and then I was like, "Hang on, what the hell's happening here? What is going on?" How they thought they could get away with that, I don't know. But I don't know. Yeah. So that made the weekend quite a strange one. To be honest. But not much else to say. No. We'll move on to Rome, which is round 13 and 14. Obviously, I was there. It was so hot. Yeah. It was 40 degrees, I can't. But Evans, Cassidy, Gunther on the first round, and then Dennis, Nato and Bird. Really good to see Nato on the podium and Gunther as well in the first round. We'll talk about round 13 first, obviously the massive crash. Oh my God, Sam Bird nearly lost his legs. I mean, I knew that it was bad when they didn't show it on the TV and the extraction car went round the track. I said to Millie, the girl, one of my friends that I was with, that I was like, this is not good. This is not good. Wemi's car was in 2 pieces. They needed a whole new chassis. As other teams also did have to rebuild their car completely. And half of the teams worked through the night to then get their cars to scrutineering at 7 a.m. in the morning the next day, which is absolutely incredible. A colossal effort. And all of the teams got their cars ready for the next round the next day. So it was a massive effort from all the teams, and massive congratulations to all the team's mechanics, everyone that really put in the effort, because what an effort that was. Absolutely. But tainted by that. accident, not something you want to see. And Sam Bird being the nicest person he is, it's really horrible, and I think it did affect him as well.
Absolutely. I remember, obviously, I was in the middle of nowhere in Spain when this crash happened. I remember you texting me and going, "This is a really big crash."
Yeah.
I was actually at a swimming pool with loads of kids, and not having any phone signal. I couldn't see the crash until the evening. And it was scary because I think we can both say, obviously, with the Delano crash recently, side-on impacts are the worst ones in motorsport because there is little you can do with the cars to protect you from that. And thank God Sam was okay in the end. Obviously, had a fantastic round 14 straight away, getting on the podium.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very scary. You never want to see them.
Never. I mean, motorsport is dangerous. I mean, that's just something we have to deal with. But like you said, it's just not nice to see. Side impacts as well. It is scary, but obviously, like you said, Bird was on the podium in round 14, but it was tainted by the accident. I think he was on the podium. I was there for that, and he said, I've had my fair share of mistakes, and I'm paying for them. And that was a really heartfelt. He didn't celebrate. He just walked straight off when they did the champagne, and it was really, really not very nice. Right, so moving on to round 15 and 16, London. Obviously, we were there. I'll let you know.
Weekend. So yeah, obviously we were there for both races. I would say the highlight was round 15. A dry race, which meant the racing was spectacular. Obviously, we were on the on the kind of start-finish straight, so we could see all of the overtakes. I mean, obviously Evans won, Dennis second, which meant that he picked up the World Championship. But I think the whole kind of round was. The kind of main talking point was the infighting between the divisions, which eventually led to Cassidy not finishing the race, obviously losing his wing, getting a puncture, and then going to the back of the grid. And it was very exciting to see. And also, I would say the fighting in that race as well. There was a bit where I think it was Dennis v Verline, and them going side by side through I think 7 corners, and it ended with Michael Andretti running to the Porsche garage and telling them off. But yeah, obviously Buemi third and Cassidy not on the podium, obviously DNFing, which meant that Dennis picked up the win of the championship.
Absolutely, it was just something, but what you're failing to mention is the 14 car pile-up.
Yes, that is quite a big talking point.
When the car park becomes a car park,
obviously
it was in an XL, so it was in the car park, but it was basically, oh my gosh, so obviously 2 cars came in, like Buemi, and I think it was Bird, and then someone else, was it?
I think it was Van Dorn behind them. Obviously Van Dorn tried to turn in and then just went straight into the back.
And that was it. So obviously those 3 just blocked up the whole track. So then obviously the whole of the grid was backed up, and then the 3 leaders came round again and then would just stop behind them. So it was literally a 14 car pile up. With a red flag, obviously, but it didn't really taint the race, obviously, because we got back going again. No one was injured, and all cars made it out back on track. So.
And it did kind of feel very F1 in that aspect of being just confusing as hell because we didn't know who was going to start whether it was going to restart.
No, because obviously the 3 leaders, they'd done a whole extra lap, so they'd used more energy. So then obviously Scott Elkins, the race director, made the really good decision to then let them go, and they had to do another. The whole grid had to do another lap under the safety car, and then they picked up the 3 leaders so that they were both on the same energy. Because that's obviously something different to Formula One, is that these teams are that everything's so down to the last minute in terms of how much energy they've got for the laps. When it comes to stuff like that, it's not fair for someone to have more energy than the other because they've done more laps, essentially.
Exactly. But I would say Scott Elkins did a fabulous job. It was so well articulated. I think that's his strength. He's so good at articulating stuff in the intense moments, and it was very kind of, even though we weren't even in the area where we could really see the screens, we knew what was going to happen. So I
think that's also one thing with Formula E, and obviously Scott is an absolute. I think he's incredible, but I think as Formula E as well, the race director notes when they talk to the teams are played over the tannoy, which I think is just so much better because you just feel a part of it, if it makes sense. Whereas in Formula 1 you don't know what's going to happen. It comes on the screen, you just get told. Whereas in Formula E you actually listen to Scott's thought process.
You hear exactly what the teams are hearing, which is different.
It is different. And obviously round 16 it was tainted by the wet weather. Obviously it's really different. It's different conditions because you've got an inside and outside track. It's probably one of the most unique settings in the Formula E or in motorsport in general.
Motorsport, yeah.
Because they've only got one tyre for all weather conditions. So obviously when you're going from somewhere that's completely dry to completely wet, it's extremely hard to navigate how you're gonna sort this out, and also the spray was insane.
Oh my god, you literally couldn't see a car length in front of you, and that was the main reason for it. Obviously the drivers could, it wasn't like they were aquaplaning, it was just the visibility, it was so poor.
And it's just too dangerous to do that, and obviously Scott wanted to give everyone there a race.
Yeah, we were waiting for an hour and a half for it to start.
But what can you do in that situation?
You can't do anything.
It's safety, isn't it? I mean, especially after Rome, it's not something you want to risk.
And especially after Fenestras's incident in round 15 in London, we didn't want to see anything like that.
Oh, absolutely not. No. He went into the tyre barriers outside, just where the track road is. That was very bad. Not something you want to see. But yeah, obviously, world champion.
Yeah.
Jake Dennis, what a season for him. You know,
what a season.
It was down to the second to last race, so we can't complain. That was just for my benefit.
Oh, yeah.
I just wrote down all the list of the world champions, but yeah. So that's it. So let's get into the outro. Okay, so that is it. We're going to round up, obviously, season 9. What a season!
What a season!
We'll quickly talk about the drivers. Silly season it is at its finest.
So obviously, Lotterer is retiring, we believe. Obviously, going to WEC. We've got Frines leaving. We've got leaving Cooper.
Yeah.
Yes. We've got Casti leaving Envision, going to Jaguar, I believe, are the rumours for that. And then we've got Frines leaving as well. I don't think there's any more confirmed leaving at the moment. Rast is leaving. I think Hughes is staying though, which is good because I'm a big Hughes fan.
Yeah. And then Bird.
Yes, Bird leaving Jag. That was literally announced right after the race, and then the Frines one was literally announced as they were going to the grid.
So what a way to do it, but silly season is at its finest.
Definitely.
But yeah, so not much else to say. That roll on season 10, obviously still Gen 3. Hopefully going to get to a lot more races.
Fingers crossed.
Obviously I'm doing a little bit of work here and there.
News coming up.
News coming soon, so stay tuned. So hopefully we'll be at a lot more races. But yeah, so I'm so excited for the season. Obviously, I don't know if you can probably tell, when we talk about Formula 1, it's very much sound dominant.
Yes.
It's very interested in it. Whereas Formula E, this is my terrain, I guess. But if you liked, blimey! I've been talking for too long.
Yeah,
literally. If you liked this form of podcast in terms of Formula E and you want to hear more in terms of race weekends, I can't promise that I'll have enough time to do it, but if you do want it, then let us know and we will do some on and off
absolutely
episodes in terms of Formula E, but also in other championships maybe. I don't know.
Hopefully doing an IndyCar one at the end of this season as well.
Yes, IndyCar, so stay tuned. But that's pretty much all we have to say. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you for Zandvoort.
Goodbye.